G'day. This week it's all about travelling to Weenie Creek, Richmond and a place called Glen Davis. Weenie Creek, I went there with my son and that was great fun. Went from there to Richmond, that was quite organised, managed to get a bit of shopping done, get all organised, and that's only 65 kilometres out of Sydney. From there I went up to a place called Glen Davis. Now if you're going to camp there, don't stay at Glen Davis, stay at Coorongooba, I think it's called. The details are on later on in the video. Definitely great, fantastic escarpment, kangaroos absolutely everywhere, and I did the tour of the shale works. That was a bit of a treat as well. Anywho, let's go.
Should have brought a skateboard or something.
It was tricky to get the car and caravan.
No, I'm joking. Have you been on this track in a while?
Oh, and I had the little caravan.
Maybe it's got to go inside.
It's got a spark on something that's going to light.
Well, yeah, I'm going to get this. I've got this now. I figured out the concept, yeah. Serious patience game is what this is. Suppose it all really depends on how hungry are you?
Any time today would be fine.
then your destination will be on the right.
Next day, up at the crack of dawn. Had to take it easy going from back on the main road because it's fairly icy and there's a lot of black ice you can get when the temperature drops down near zero. This last section, you're just about to drive into Lithgow. Very steep section, even though it only talks about trucks changing gear. Really good idea, manual or automatic, to change down low gear. When you're driving out in the country, always be aware of kangaroos, day or night. I'm in stunning Glen Davis Campground. It's national park, so all they've changed it in New South Wales, making it you have to make a booking fee for every national park you stay at. Not quite sure. They're saying that's for part of the maintenance and keep it safe for us and so on and so forth. Fair enough. It's really not much anyway, so the dollar value is not important. But look, it's a really great place to base yourself. Can't guarantee what time of the year it is. Like I'm here on the Monday following just a normal weekend, and there's only one other camper here. But during the weekend there was probably about 20, and I think it's probably got the capacity of maybe 100 or more. They're probably camper trailers or camper vans or, you know, motorhomes, all that sort of stuff. Probably not so much caravans, but hey, I'm here. A really great place. You're just literally a couple of kilometres away from the shale, the old shale factory. Now that's a tour you can do. I'd probably recommend that. That's pretty good. And if you don't do the tour, you can certainly walk up to the lookout and look over the old buildings. And those buildings were used between 1938 and 1952, thereabouts. They were using the shale to produce petrol and all the derivatives of oil. So absolutely outstanding. It really is just some great place. Now what I'm going to do is, someone's asked me how big's the area. Now I couldn't even tell you in acres or hectares, but I'm going to measure it out, and I have a feeling it's around about, my guess, 5 acres, but I'll go and measure it so you can get a pretty good idea. Not that it's overly relevant, but believe me, if you've got kids, it's almost all flat, right by a little river, and the escarpment is just outstanding, it really is. By the way, in case I hadn't mentioned earlier on, this is the second world's largest canyon, so go Aussies. We'll go and measure that. I'll measure how wide and I'll guess how long. Here we go. From fence railing to fence railing. 1, 118 steps wide. It's probably twice as long, so that would be 100 times 200, which is 2,000 steps. I shot this the other day and I wasn't quite sure how it ended up, but just in case, again, this is the old shale works, and the aim of that was to take the shale from the mountain. Now the shale is round about, you're looking up there at the escarpment, round about tree line is where the shale was found from there on that little section. And this apparently was extremely good quality shale. So they'd pull that out. You can see the shale mine, which is now locked up for good reasons, I'm sure. And they would get it out of there, put it on a conveyor belt, get it down to the various processing parts of the factory here. And this closest building is where there was 400 degrees down the very bottom and about 800 degrees at the very top, and they would filter out the non-wanted gases. And the guys at the very top who were managing that, quite often young men, like 17-year-olds or younger, they were in charge up there. And unfortunately, sometimes when the gas would go up, it would actually explode and blow the top off. Now you may be asking, what does shale look like? I'm sure that I remember as a little kid that I'd be running up the sides of the hill, and what I thought was shale then would just be like slithers of rock, and they'd all just break apart. Anywho, maybe not the case. So this is physically what it looks like. Just looks like a black rock. And there's various pieces I've got here. They all look about the same. Feels and looks a little bit like charcoal, but obviously doesn't make the marks that charcoal makes. Now the thing is, apparently you can burn this stuff and it burns for a while, burning rock. So I better get it back to camp and see if it really does burn. And normally I give you a heads up when there's a bit of a path, so here it is. It says it's 550 metres, I don't think it's that, but let's assume it is. There's probably, I don't know, 35 steps on the way up. They're all well maintained, and then there's no ankle snappers, so you should be fine if you can just do your normal walk. And as I said, not much of an effort. When you get to the top, you'll get the first level, and that level will actually overlook the shale works. And if you walk a little bit further, you do have to walk kind of through broken down buildings, so if you're a little bit adventurous, walk through that little bit, and then probably 50 metres up from there, you will see the opening of the shale mine, which is closed due to safety, understandably, but then you can actually get the feeling of the whole thing when it happened way back in the 50s. I remember the first time I saw the cluster of satellites from Starlink. It was very, very freaky. I had no idea what they were.
What actually happened about 50 million years ago, about the same time the Himalayas rose up, these cliffs rose up and exposed the shale seam. The shale seam is roughly around about tree height all the way around. And if you were to go down the same distance underneath this, you'd find shale as well. So that's what it looked like when they were here. So they were here in 2020, June long weekend.
I cleaned it up.
That was the playground.
I believe this was the interrogation area, and this area on the left is where they bunked in, and on the right where they would shower and clean up.
We have our ghost, the ghost of Glen Davis.
No.
He was standing there. In the 1980s, a rock group called Wildlands came to film a video here. And that video, when they took it back, showed a apparition of a headless monk.
This building behind me is where they would have the gases actually running up the columns. Unfortunately, because of occupational health and all that sort of stuff, we can't go underneath it, but it's a pretty amazing sight. And what would happen is the gases would go up, and because of its relatively poor design, every now and then it would explode and literally blow the top off the part of the building. You see little grey marks on the side of the building. That's where some of the explosions happened. Now you can absolutely guarantee some people were hurt and the occasional person was killed just for this process.
45 million litres of petrol a year. In 1949, that they were only producing 15 million litres. So that dropped down by 30 million litres a year. In 1951, that dropped down even further to 5 million litres.
Well, there you have it. Another week wrapped up. Camping around Sydney. Didn't go out that far really. Weenie Creek and Richmond, quite close to Sydney. Around about 65 kilometres for Richmond. And of course there was the trip out to Glen Davis. Make certain you get it on the right campground, which is called Coorongooba or something similar. Thanks very much to my son, Bowie, for coming along and joining me. That was great fun having you there. And if you found the video useful, helpful and or entertaining, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please, now's the time. And if you think the video is worth sharing, that too would be great. And until next time, this is Paul Wheel Drive, signing off.